Due to the steep rise in home prices and ever-changing job opportunities, many Americans are now looking out for movement from expensive, overpriced cities to more affordable places to live. This was from an article in the Teal Mango that's talking about the 10 cheapest states to live in the United States. Let's go through them and talk about this from the Nomad Lifestyle perspective. I really agree with the ideas behind this article, and that's because moving to a new state for a lower cost of living, that follows the same principles that a nomad lifestylist would follow, except it's just on a one-time basis. Now, what the nomad lifestyle looks for is to always keep costs down and reduce risk in the long run. And we do this by, number one, not having a mortgage. So if you ever lose your job and you still have a mortgage, we've seen how people can lose their house as well. Number two is that there's no kind of HOA fees that you have to pay as a nomad. We can always avoid places that are going to charge you every month just for maintenance or something like that. Number three is that living as a nomad means that you don't have to pay for any kind of big repairs in the rentals. Say that your boiler explodes or you need a new roof, you don't have to drop that $10,000 to $15,000 to go and make that fix. And lastly, you can always reduce your costs in case of a job loss. Let's say you have a steady job, it's gone, and you still have rent and all that to pay. You have a year contract or maybe even more, or maybe you do have that mortgage and you lose your job. All of a sudden, you are in dire straits. Whereas for a nomad, it's not really a problem. We're used to moving, we don't have high costs associated with where we're staying, and we don't have to keep making those payments or risk homelessness. So for me, I use the nomad lifestyle to pay off my student loans. I went to college like a dum-dum, and though I graduated like a smart, I did not understand the financial pickle that I was putting myself in by signing that master promissory note to pay off that student education. But let's get down to the top 10 cheapest states that this article has laid out for us, and let's talk about how a nomad should think about this. So when they say cheapest state, they don't necessarily mean that the state that you spend the least amount of money in. They mean the state that you spend the least amount of money in compared to how much money you make. So if there's one state where you're more likely to make a little bit more money, but the cost of living is a little bit higher, maybe that will still be cheaper overall compared to a state where the cost of living is quite low, but you can't really get paid anything at all. So their top 10 states go like this. Number one is Mississippi. Number two is Oklahoma. The third cheapest state is the state of liking this video. Go ahead and poke that like button so it can reach more people. Really appreciate your help on that. The fourth state would be Arkansas, 5 is Kansas, 6 Missouri, then Georgia, Alabama, New Mexico, Tennessee, and Indiana. Now, as you can see, most of those states are relegated to the American South with the exception of Indiana. But if you're one of those Americans who's looking for movement from an overpriced city and you want to know where is the cheapest place to live in the United States, well, the article says that per the latest research done by the Council for Community and Economic Research, Mississippi is the most affordable state in the USA that has the lowest cost of living compared to the national average. Now, that sounds fine, but I looked up the top things to do in Mississippi on Google, and it was just an emoji of a tumbleweed rolling past Elvis's grave. So it doesn't really look like there's a whole lot to do there. Granted, the article goes on to say that Mississippi is the cheapest state with an average cost of living that's lower by 15% than compared to the rest of the country. You'd still need a basic standard living of just $48,537 to survive there. That means that the cheapest state to live in the United States is just going to be under $50,000 a year. I'm sure it's going to be easy to move there. There's probably a pretty short line of people clamoring to get into Picayune. Now, let's further consider that if you want to live in the United States, a lot of people will recommend that you buy a home, but according to this article, the lowest real estate prices in the country can be found in the city of Joplin, Missouri, where a standard 4-bedroom home is going to cost you approximately $200,000. Now, I know there's places where you can find stuff cheaper than that because I'm from Michigan out in the countryside, and I know you can get a 4-bedroom home for less than $200,000 up there, but I think this is more referring to actually like cities to live in the United States. Let's just push all that to the side and take that $200,000 elsewhere. It's going to go much further in places like Southeast Asia or in Latin America, and in a lot of cases, that kind of money money can be used to purchase a home that's going to get you residency or citizenship in another country. So why not spend that money getting yourself a property and also a second passport? This is a dream for me, and I would love to be able to do this someday, to be able to buy a property somewhere, maybe in like Colombia, and then go get a passport from there, maybe even here in Mexico. I'm not quite sure yet. Like I said, it's a dream. I still have my student loans to pay off, so I'm going to be focusing on that for the next 100,000 years until I can actually afford a home. So I'm stuck renting, obviously, and if I'm going to go back home to the United States and rent there, well, I'm going to be spending a lot more money. Let's look at the 3 most affordable states for cost of living according to this article and see what it looks like to pay for rent there. Well, the housing costs in Mississippi, they say, are around $795 per month, whereas in Oklahoma, the second state with the lowest cost of living, the housing cost is just $879 per month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Going over to Arkansas, it ranks 3rd in the list of the cheapest countries. It says that the residents of Arkansas spend about $700 a month on housing rent. So what is the cheapest state in the entire country to rent? Well, that's Alabama, and it's going to average you about $698 for a 2-bedroom apartment. So that means that the lowest average rent in the United States is about $700 per month, which probably doesn't sound like a lot if you're from a place like New York City, but $700 for me as a nomad is quite a lot to spend each month. And so here's just some ideas of what I've spent around the world. In Mexico, I was spending $388 a month on the Pacific side. I had a 2-bedroom house up on top of another one. It had a nice little balcony overlooking a jungle mountain, had a hammock and stuff like that. So a really nice place for $388. In Thailand, I've spent anywhere from $150 a month for a tiny little bungalow filled with ants and snakes to up to about $270, maybe $300 for a bigger bungalow that has a yard and a lot of coconut trees and things like that. If you're in Thailand, I mean, you could spend $600 on an island and you could get a private villa with your own personal infinity pool and things like that. So if we're looking at $700 in the United States in a landlocked city or $600 for a private villa in Thailand, you can see that even just going over to Southeast Asia can save you $100 on rent every month, plus you're going to increase your quality of living. Now in Colombia, I've spent a lot of time in and around Medellin. I was spending $210 a month when I was outside of the city on a really nice kind of like cabin style home that had its own pool. But while I was inside the city, I spent no more than $600, and they would be really nice modern apartments. One of them had its own putt-putt golf course, basketball court, a sauna, a gym, and a pool. And that one was only like $350 a month. It was a really good deal. So you're looking at about half the cost for a really nice place in a city like Medellin compared to what you'll spend in the United States. So if you are willing to move to another state to reduce your cost of living, why can't you move somewhere else? You know, if you're going to go from California to Alabama, why can't you go from California to Mexico or California to Thailand or California to Colombia? It's just as easy. It's just a little bit further. Sure, you have to have your passport and things like that to get there, but overall, the principle of living like a nomad holds true whether you're staying in the United States or whether you're moving to another country. Either way, you can save money, but you can certainly save more if you take that nomad lifestyle outside of the United States. And I personally think that living in the United States is super overpriced and incredibly risky. And here's a video right here about 11 reasons to leave the United States.